Welcome back in for another Badgers segment. I'm Brandon Harrison here with ESPN Madison's Jim Rutledge and Tom Lee.
I'm just glad you said my name first. Because
I'm a little disappointed.
Priorities, seniority.
It's just because he's right-handed.
Talent.
He's got the right-handed dominance, so he went to you offhand.
All right.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit Badger basketball this time, switching up gears from last time when we talked some football. Let's open up with some of the new guys. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what you guys thought of Duhay and Gasser and some of the new guys and how they're going to play in.
You talk about Brust. He's like a bullet, according to Bull Ryan. And Tom, you can probably help me with this. Out of that group, and you forgot Evan Anderson, everyone's favorite Evan Anderson.
Who I think gets a bad rap. I think he's going to be a servible big.
He got a bad rap because the chances the Badger fans got a chance to see him last year, Camp Randall. Didn't do much. I agree in the fact that he needs the red shirt if we're gonna go with Evan Anderson here.
Which I think he will.
I think he has the basic skill set. He had high end people looking at him early. The Badgers stuck it out. He's gonna have the skill set. He's a classic Bull Ryan recruit. We talk about what the Badger football team does with recruits. Evan Anderson's a guy, and big men in general, especially in upper central Wisconsin. You're not going against other big men. You're not, no offense to his high school coach, you're not getting the training that you need to be getting. He's the guy that needs the red shirt. He needs to, work at being a big man. Brian Bush did it. Bergeron's done it. It's difficult to come in and play right away.
And I think he's going to realize that, he only played, I think, 5 minutes in the exhibition opener on Saturday night. He's going to realize that, hey, he's got Keaton Ankerville, he's got John Lure, he's got Jared Bergeron all ahead of him.
Bull Ryan, and I'm not going to take a shot at JP, but I kind of am. Bull Ryan mentioned JP Gavinsky being in front of Evan Anderson. Yeah. That really gives you where you're going to be, because look at JP Gavinsky's minutes from last year.
And I talked to Jared Bergeron too, and he said that had he not redshirted, because he was basically in the same boat Evan Anderson is as far as depth when he started his career here. I talked to him, and he said that he'd be very disappointed if he hadn't redshirted and if he were a junior this year in his career. So I think that's the type of advice he's given down.
How many fifth-year seniors, fourth-year juniors do you say, man, I wish that I played as a freshman and didn't get a lot of minutes?
Yeah.
And I don't really see downside in general to redshirting unless you're some sort of monster project there, because otherwise it's just a waste. Just redshirt, get better. Football, basketball, women's, men's sports. Redshirt if it's available to you.
Yeah, that's why it's there. I mean, it's to help you and to benefit you. Plus
yeah,
you get a fifth year
forget
out
the
of it,
team out of it. You're gonna be a year older, especially a big man. You're still growing. You're still trying to figure out how to be able to. It's not like It's not like everyone else where you slowly grow. You had some massive growth spurt where then you have to figure out how to play. Look how good John Lure is compared as a freshman to now. He's grown into his body, into his skill set.
Plus, nobody will ever complain about spending 5 years in college.
No.
I mean, that's another added benefit.
Right, I totally can understand that. Ben Brust, I think he's going to end up redshirting because there's Quentin Smith, there's Gasser who I kind of saved for last year. And then you have Jordan Taylor.
Rob Wilson.
And so then all of a sudden, Brust.
But then again, with Brust, if there's an injury among any of those 3 or 4 guys that you just talked about, he could be back into the forefront. But that's the type of thing where, that's a wait-and-see approach. I think
he's a talented player.
He is, very much so.
So I don't think, I hope redshirt doesn't get a bad name, because I think it's going to work out really well for him. Duhay, another guy I think is marked for redshirting, because you got Bruesewitz, you have Ryan Evans, you have Jarmus, kind of all in that same role. Plus Rob Wilson probably works into that swing spot also. Or if you call Duhay a big man, then you just talked about Keaton, Lure, Gavinsky, Bergeron. There's a lot of bodies. And Bruesewitz, again, go back to Evan Anderson, is a guy that you probably consider a little bit more of a power forward, another person, another body in front of Evan Anderson. So I think Duhay ends up redshirting. I really think he's going to be the rise of this group.
I agree with that. His defense isn't there as of right now. I mean, usually with a new freshman, never is, but I think that's the type of thing where Bo's going to work with him, and like you say, Jay, he's gonna come back as a freshman, a redshirt freshman, hopefully, a redshirt sophomore, and just clean house in the Big Ten, because he's got that. He's smart, he's savvy, he's got a great looking shot. You can tell he's been around basketball his whole life, so he's a guy that's going to be very good.
To segue, Gasser, smart, savvy, looks like he's got a high basketball IQ, and he's at a position where I think he's better than Brust, which is why he's going to get the minutes. Bull Ryan said that Gasser has maturity of a 21, 22-year-old. I think Gasser is in line here for a Jason Bohannon type freshman year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he looks a little bit more like a more athletic Jason Bohannon. Nothing against Jason Bohannon, because he was a fine player for 4 years.
I didn't believe he could dunk for a long time.
Well, I saw him in practice multiple times doing ridiculous dunks and some windmills. Like, where's this coming from? Yeah, like, all right, Jason. But yeah, I really think Gosser's going to play a huge role this year. He's going to play a ton of minutes, and I think Bo's confident in him, which is a huge thing as a freshman.
He seems more like a well-rounded player too than maybe Jason Mohan was. Referencing to what Bo thinks of his new guys, explain to me real quicker answer on this one. He's kind of referenced to Duhé Ducon as a colt. What does Bo mean by Duhé as a colt out there?
I'll give you what I'm thinking here. You got to break a colt. They're very, and I don't know a ton about horses, but you think of a colt, you think raw power, raw ability. You got to break it, you got to work it in, you got to harness everything a colt can do, and I think that's what he's going with.
I thought he was talking about the sound he makes when he's running around the court. It's like a gallop or what? Am I way off?
Maybe.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Maybe I'm reading way too much into it.
That was just me being.
Bo Ryan, the horse whisperer.
All right, so now we've looked at the new guys coming in. Who do we think is going to kind of step in and be the guy? I mean, we know it's going to be John Lure, but say it's coming down to a last-second situation. Sometimes it's tougher to get it down low, get it to a John Lure, make that last-second shot. Who's going to be the guy they're going to look to for scoring in the clutch?
The obvious guy is going to be Jordan Taylor, and I think he's proven that over the last year or two in his career. I mean, we saw him take the big shot at Iowa.
Jordan Taylor.
Yeah, Gus Johnson even called him Michael Jordan Taylor. We saw him make the big shot at Iowa to send it to overtime a few years ago, and then we saw him last year against Penn State down the stretch, basically take over. He's the guy. As far as a breakout player, though, my breakout player is going to be Mike Bruesewitz. I think he's going to be the guy that's going to really pick up the scoring end. His defense is going to be much improved. We already know how good of a rebounder he is, but he's going to be my breakout player of the year for sure.
I think Lure has the ability to. I know you mentioned, in the post. You could get him the ball on the wing and have him take it to the hoop, control the offense, make that big play. I think it is going to depend a little bit on what bigs are against Lure, how much time you have. If you have 6 seconds, you can work it inside to Lure and get him a good shot. If you're talking 3-4 seconds, still Lure can knock down that three. He can shoot over anyone. I think it will be Lure. If Jordan Taylor is hot, it's going to be Jordan Taylor. Jordan Taylor's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. He's going to be a fantastic player.
And he is one of those streaky players. I mean, he can get real hot or he can be very cold.
Yeah. I like, and I really agree with you that Bruesewitz is going to continue to get better. I'm going to go with a guy that I just think has to be better at breakout. Not Keaton. And Keaton's a guy that the Badgers, if Keaton plays well, the Badgers could be a Sweet 16 team, easy, maybe even Elite 8. Rob Wilson, he needs to break out because Quentin Smith isn't proven. I think he's strong. I think he's smart, but he's not going to give you it. And I think he'll give you the defense you need, but he's small. I think you're going to need the other points, and you're going to need. I know Bo talks about Lucy Bohannon and Hughes and their defensive, what they could do, but it's really you have to get points too. Rob can give you that, but he's got to be more consistent defensively so he can stay on the court. So Rob is my breakout player because he has to be for the Badgers, who I have him second in the Big Ten, partially because I think Rob Wilson will break out.
I think I had him at 5, but I said
you're a hater.
They have the potential to finish in the top 2 or 3.
So
I wouldn't be surprised. Just
hedging
my bets more than anything.
Well, you guys are taking the right direction. Let's expand on that. You said second, you said 5th. Where do you guys see the Badgers finishing? Everybody's got a middle of the pack, but we all know since Bo Ryan's been here, they've never been lower than 4th. Where do you guys see them finishing this season?
On our podcast at ESPNMadison.com, you can listen to the entire thing. I have Illinois winning the Big Ten.
Wow.
And the more I look at it, I mean, there's so many good teams. I just think Illinois, McCamey is underrated because Weber loves him, but loves to hate him at the same time.
He can get into his head and make him focus the entire year.
And plus, they Jerome Richardson. Plus, they have a lot of other.
Back.
Yeah, you have Davis. There's a lot of good players.
Tyler Griffey's back, who's a highly touted prepster.
Yeah, and then you got Michigan State, Ohio State. Ohio State's got some. They call it Fad 6. You got Solinger. There's a lot of good players there. But I have Wisconsin at 2. I think Jordan Taylor has proven that he's continuing to progress. Rob Wilson is a guy that I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's still one more year away. But think of where Rob Wilson was as a true freshman to last year.
Right.
I think he's going to continue to grow. He's adding weight. I think he's going to get better. Jarmus is a guy that I think will improve his shot enough that he can double, which is basically making one more basket a game, double his productivity by just having a little more confidence this year. Lure, I think, is the Big Ten Player of the Year, in my opinion. I think he's going to win that. And Nankivil, again, I'm optimistic Nankivil and Wilson make the jumps, and that puts the Badgers at 2 because Bruesewitz is a guy who already has a specific skill in defense. Wilson's got a good defensive skill. Then you add some of these freshmen. I see second in the Big Ten.
I had Michigan State at number 1. I don't know how you can count against those guys. I mean, they have a very senior-laden team with Kalen Lucas and Draymond Green coming back. I mean, they're proven players that have proven that they can get pretty far in March and do some damage in the Big Ten. I forget exactly how I went down the road, but I think it was something like Purdue at 2, Illinois at 3, Ohio State at 4, Wisconsin 5, Minnesota 6. I think that's what it was. I just like the depth, and that's not to say anything or rag on Wisconsin. That's just the depth of the Big Ten is very deep this year. It's going to be the best conference in America, at least at the top, in my opinion. So, but we've already seen it that Wisconsin, especially when people are saying that they're not going to do well, they just come back and go and win a Big Ten title. I mean, that's just how O'Ryan does it. So, you always know what you're going to get with Wisconsin. It's going to be how these other teams, pan out through the rest of the year. An injury here or there to any of these teams could really open it up.
I think in our next one we need to talk about the loss of Howard Moore.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. And that hasn't been discussed at all.
I just discussed it.
All right.
Another possibility and another thing we should put into the next segment is possibly the timer like we were talking about, because it seems like we've been going a little bit over here. Quick last question. Mike Bruesewitz, keep the fro, let
Keep
it go.
Done.
Gotta keep it.
Keep it.
Check it.
Throw it in cornrows. I keep it.
Grow it out. I want it to be just ridiculous. Josh Childress.
No,
Yes.
I'm thinking
it's
it's Jackie
good.
Moon.
Or Jackie Moon style. I mean, I want this thing huge, and I want it shaped. Keep going at it, Mike.
All right, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, that was long. Sorry.
That was long.
No, don't worry about it.
How long
We
was
should
that?
try to find a way of getting a timer.
Was that
or
like
something. That's a
15?
good idea.
I think you can probably do it on a computer.
It's probably like at least 10 minutes. It was that first question at 14 minutes.